Hey, welcome back to the Lead Up Podcast. I'm Mike Harbour. I'm your host. Really excited to be with you today on the Lead Up Podcast. This is where we explore what it truly takes to lead, not just with performance, but with clarity, with resilience, and with alignment. So important. Today's conversation is for you, the high capacity leader, the one who shows up for everyone, the one who carries the weight, the ones who look like they have it all together, but behind the scenes, they're tired, they're worn out. Our guest today understands that weight personally and professionally. Barbara Gustavson, not only is she a friend, she's an author and a brain health educator. She's a speaker. She's a leadership facilitator with a master's in psychology. She blends neuroscience, psychology, and human connection to help leaders regroup, rewire, and lead sustainably. She also oversees Dr. Daniel Amen's brain health certification program and has worked with clinicians, coaches, educators, and organizations around the world. We're going to talk about her new book today that she's recently released. It's titled Regroup: How to Reset Your Mind to Unlock Hidden Energy, Enjoy Productive Peace, and Feel Like Yourself Again. And it asks a powerful question: who will take care of everything if you don't take care of yourself? Barbara, welcome to the Lead Up Podcast.
Hey, Mike, always great to see you. I enjoy our conversations. I really appreciate the work that you're doing with healthcare leaders and communities. So thanks.
Yeah, it's great to have you back again. I don't know, it's been several years maybe since I had you on the podcast. I think you Discover Next Step, I think maybe was the title of that. What was the title of that first one?
Yeah, it was Permission to be Bold. And it was,
Permission to be Bold.
It was 2019, the end of 2019.
Wow.
Where everything changed in the world.
Yeah, let's talk about your new book, because this is one I thumbed through it. I resonated with. I read the first chapter completely, and then I started thumbing through the book just to pick up other ideas. I just resonated so much with the first chapter. I even told my wife, I said, "You need to read this book. This is your story here in that first chapter." So thanks for getting vulnerable really quick in that first chapter. But let's talk about why this book, why now, from you. On the outside, many leaders, they look like they're holding it together, but internally they're running out of fumes. I'm talking to leaders every day about this very topic. What inspired you to write Regroup? And was there a moment when you knew the message had to be shared?
Yes, I wish I could say it inspired me because I had it all together. I would say I'm the one who needed to regroup. I didn't feel like myself. My energy was, I would say, every day. I just felt like I had brain fog, was drained. And I feel like things that once gave me joy, I just didn't feel that anymore. So I really thought to get clear. And through a 15-year caregiving journey with my dad, it's been a whole process. And I really wanted to share some of the things that unlocked that joy and energy for me that I didn't know about. There's a lot of great information out there, but there's also these hidden barriers and things that aren't talked about that I wanted to bring to the surface. And so for me, if you were to look at me, I looked fine. I could have a smile on my face, and I was doing my programs, caregiving. I had things together externally, but inside there was this unexplained exhaustion. And honestly, I couldn't put it into words. I just knew I was tired, even after a good night's sleep. And there wasn't like a dramatic breaking point. It was more of, it was like a slow erosion, a slow wearing down. And I think, especially with the caregiving responsibilities and the leadership expectations and running a business, it just, these pressures just started stacking up on each other when you don't have the luxury of clocking out or putting things away. It gets harder and harder to hold it together, and easy things seem harder. So I didn't realize how much energy I was spending on different things, and even just the energy of holding it together, until I allowed myself to step back and just start gently questioning what's going on. I knew I couldn't go at the pace I was going, but I also knew I couldn't give up certain responsibilities. That would be irresponsible. So I just had to really start giving myself permission to step. And honestly, that was really hard. So regroup really came from, I would say, recognizing that a lot of leaders live in that same place. They're highly capable, they're even functioning, but they are feeling chronically depleted. And often they don't have the language for what they're experiencing. So this is really to support them and helping them understand that it's okay to give yourself permission to address these quiet signals that our minds, our bodies are telling us and step back.
That's so good. Yeah, look, I work in the healthcare, primarily the hospital space, and leadership is harder today than it's ever been. And it's really hard in the healthcare space. There's a shortage of workforce in a lot of industries, but especially in healthcare, a shortage of nurses, especially a shortage of patient care providers, those types of things. So they're carrying a lot of weight. And a lot of these leaders are moms as well and spouses as well. And they're being asked to do more at work, but we're also being asked to do more at home, right? I think our lives have gotten busier with all the sports and activities that we feel like we have to be a part of. But you talk about alignment and a restoration, not escape, not pushing harder. That distinction feels critical. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, as I mentioned, sometimes we don't have the luxury of walking away, and we don't want to walk away from supporting others. And so the alignment piece, I remember back in it's been 5 years ago, I started to have all these strange symptoms. I lost use of my right arm. I started experiencing pain, and they were looking at doing shoulder surgery because that's where the pain was. But then I connected to a special chiropractor. When it turned out, I was completely misaligned, like from here, from C1 down to C5. And it really got me to thinking, what areas in my life am I misaligned that I don't even know about? And when you think about, let's say, a simple analogy, a car, we have four wheel, those tires need to be aligned. And when they're not aligned, you could still go the distance, you could still go far. But after a while, it really takes a toll on the other tires, on the other areas of the car. And so it really got me thinking that it doesn't take much for areas in our life to get misaligned, whether that's physically, our relationships, our spiritual aspects, and even our own psychology, our mindset. It doesn't take much. The good news is there are little tiny ways to check in with ourselves to see if we're still aligned, and there's things that we can get back in alignment. Often what we do is we wait until it becomes really clear that we're out of alignment. When we see that fuel gauge on empty, that's often when we're like, okay, now I need to be doing something. And I think that's one of the hard things for busy leaders, supporters, and givers is to recognize that it's really key to step back and have these little check-ins, these little regroups for yourself while you're doing life. Don't wait till, the loud burnout. Listen to, we both share a mentor, and he often says, listen to the whisper. Don't wait for the 2x4. And so often we know that there's something whispering to us. We know when we're not getting enough sleep, or we just don't feel good about a conversation, or when we're really pushing through, and often we wait.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I call those signals, right? They're signals
Signals.
for something bigger going on.
Definitely, yes.
Yeah. What I love the term alignment as well. I prefer when I'm working with clients to use the term alignment versus accountability, because really when there's dysfunction in organizations, it's really just a lack of alignment with each other, communication, with expectations. But I love the way you gave us an image of that alignment with our spine and how that creates little signals, little symptoms of something bigger going on. Let's talk about who this book is for. Who did you have in mind when writing the book? And is this for the overwhelmed executive or entrepreneurs or high achievers? Who really can benefit from what you've given us?
Yes, definitely those. I would say is for also high capacity people. It could be the leaders, the community helpers, the caregivers, even the entrepreneurs. I would say the one that other people depend on, especially for people who may not identify as burnout because they're still functioning, they're highly competent, they're driven and responsible, but they have this quiet thing running in the background. They're running low on that alignment or their internal reserves.
Moms, especially working
Um,
moms, right?
yeah, absolutely. Oh my goodness. And the thing is, I meet many people that are legitimately, they don't have a lot of time in the day. Like to ask them, they're like, I don't have 5 minutes of peace. And to really sit down with them to find the time. But the good news in this is when you really break down the hours of sleeping and then the hours where that are dedicated to other people, when we look at the discretionary time, there, people, some of the busiest people can find little tiny pockets in their day. And sometimes it's starting out with 2 minutes or 5 minutes here and there. And sometimes that's enough to start boosting their energy and help them even be a little bit more productive in the afternoon.
Yeah, so good. I teach all leaders. I just got off a coaching session before this, and when I always ask the leader, what's the most important meeting you have during your day? And of course, this leader I've worked with for a while, so she knew it's the meeting with self. I teach a meeting with self to set your intention, to set your energy, to make sure you're working on the right things, to pray, meditate, whatever it is that you do, right? And have that meeting with self. And it, as Barbara said, it can be 2 minutes. It can be 10 minutes. It could be a longer deep work session. I'm a fan of the work from Cal Newport, Barb. I don't know if you've read his stuff, the deep work. You can have a 2 minute deep work session just on self and psyche and do a little reset. So I think what Barb's teaching us here is very important. Let me ask you this. Why are leaders in particular vulnerable to this hidden depletion that we're talking about?
I believe it's because our society and leaders really normalize pressure. I believe that responsibility slowly starts to become our identity, and being a strong one feels non-negotiable. And over time, taking a step back or pausing might feel irresponsible to them, even when it's necessary. And that depletion that we start to accumulate, it stays hidden because we want to be competent and we don't realize the cost that it can have over time. We're able to pull it sometimes even years before the cost catches up with us. And this could be
Mm.
cost of our health, our mental wellness, cost of relationships, or even just the peace that we feel inside.
Let's talk about just a minute. How does the leader of leaders support their leaders to make sure they're not overburdening themselves? Because in my work, Barbara, that's really where a lot of this burnout and overwhelm is coming from. Is leaders feel they have to be the strong one, as you said, but they also have leaders that are continuing to push down initiatives and change and direction and new goals down on them. So where does the leader of leaders play a role? And why is this message so important for maybe the CEO?
Wow. That would take a much longer conversation because this is something I'd love to sink my teeth into. But the first thing I think is when we live the message ourselves, other people tend to follow the message that we're leading. And if the
Absolutely.
leader of leaders is not living the message, even if they're offering great support, like even taking them through wellness classes and stuff, if they're not modeling the behavior that they're wanting to see in their staff, there's a gap in that. And people watch not just through, you don't just listen to what you say, but they're really watching how you live. And so when I see an organization that is pushing a lot of new initiatives without having a strong support or scaffolding to take on those changes, even scaling It struck things took hold for a while, but
Mhm.
eventually that structure, there's going to be a breakdown in that. And the idea is, what can we do to go back and reinforce that foundation? And how can we, in some areas, pull back and focus on the basic, the most important things before we talk about building more? So I think it really requires a paradigm shift and also a willingness to recognize a deeper systemic issue happening.
That's so good. Yeah, love that. Law of the picture, right? People do what people see, and
Yes.
and the leader needs to model this to get everyone else coming along. Let's shift a little bit to the heart of your book. I'm an acrostic fan. I love your acrostic regroup and the regroup framework. You say it's not about time management, it's about energy management. So what's the framework you use to help people reset their minds?
Good. So with the time management regroup, each letter stands for something and it's a framework, and think of it as principles that we can live by. And there's a benefit to each of those, but there's also a cost if we don't do it. And the very first one or is resilience. And that's recognize that we have already been through a lot of hard things before, and there is a resilience inside us that often needs to be awakened. And people forget our inner strength and we think that we're not doing enough. And you might look and see, wow, there are doing a lot. So it often just takes back, and it's a good reminder that we're already strong and we need to remember who we are, what brought us to where we are in the first place, and why meeting the people that we do matters to us again. When it comes, and I don't know if you get this conversation often, people come to me often, I need to learn to manage my time better. I just have so many things to do during the day. That's an important conversation to have. But when someone is not also managing their energy, the time's going to be a lot harder. So I really encourage people to look at, how are you managing your energy? And the way I look at this is, where are the areas that you're giving, committing? How are you working? And there's this little word, or part of a word, it's called overing. And I learned
Mm,
this in some of my studies, but let's take overthinking example. The act of thinking, that's a great thing. Or even giving, the act of giving is a great thing and a quality a leader needs to have. But that overing part, that's where we start to get off balance and we start to create this inner drain. And often it's something we don't notice right away until time run. But it's really looking at the overings. Where are we overcommitting? Where are we overthinking? That creates overwhelm. And where we even overgiving without filling up our own reserves first. So it's really, that piece of it is a self-awareness, because there may be some external obvious, like caregiving, that's obvious. We're giving, we're expending, but where are the quiet depletions that we have? And it might be with the people around us, or it might be our own thoughts might be depleting and draining our energy. But
mm,
being aware of, where can we first stop those energy drains, but where can we spend more time in the things that give us energy?
that's so good. I don't struggle with over giving. I probably struggle with under giving, but I live with a couple of over givers, right? I know my wife and my daughter both are people pleasers and often overcommit or say yes too much to the wrong people that drain energy from them. And I'm probably just the opposite of that, Barb, but I do know lots of, and leaders, like I know leaders, right? They say yes because it makes them feel important or makes them feel needed, but then they end up letting themselves or others down because they can't follow through. So let's talk about the leadership aspect of this. How does a dysregulated leader impact team culture and the effectiveness of other people?
Yes. And so I'll give you an example. I read a study like Bain and Company done a few years back, and they did a survey amongst a lot of leaders, and they asked them to pick out of 34 qualities or characteristics what they desired in a leader. And you would have thought it would come back a leader with quick decision making or they have charisma, but it was shocking. The number one thing trait that was desired was centeredness, steady
Mm.
leader. And when they looked a little into that a little bit more and they asked why that was, it turns out that in times of crisis, people look to the steady leader because they can trust their decisions. They know that they're going to lead people through that change, not out of fear, but out of clarity because they are steady. So when we think about a regulated leader, they're steady, not just on the outside, because anybody can look fine again on the outside. Internally, it might be completely different. So when we talk about regulated, I literally am talking about the nervous system. We have just like a heartbeat, you have the ups and downs. Our nervous system has those ups and downs and ebbs and flows. That's a really healthy nervous system. Our nervous system is constantly trying to keep us safe, especially our brain. And we want to see when it's high alert in times of stress, because stress can be good and help us reach deadlines, and that it should come back down after that stressful situation goes away. But what happens with a lot of people who are dysregulated is it either stays on high alert and then we feel an intensity of feelings, or it is at a low place, hypoarousal, where people start feeling disconnected, even cynical, where they once found joy. So the idea is how can we retrain our nervous systems so we're more steady? Doesn't mean we're quiet, but we're steady. We're able to be cognitively and emotionally flexible in
Mm.
situations. And we also respond appropriately to situations.
Yeah, that's so good. You made me think. I started wearing an Aura ring a couple of years ago, and it tracks my HRV, heart rate variance, right?
Oh, yes.
And never knew there was such a thing, but I'm learning lots about myself, and I've actually raised my HRV about, I don't know, 7 or 8 points over the last year. I'd like to raise it even more. Part of it is I don't sleep well. I get plenty of sleep, but I don't get lots of deep sleep. I don't always sleep through the night, but I'm learning lots about myself. Also been studying vagus nerve stimulation, right? That it also helps in the HRV. But yeah, so talk about that for you when a leader is dysregulated. Give us some practical tools to help the leader recenter themselves, because I love that term, centering. How do they recenter themselves so they give their best in leadership, even with maybe all the overwhelm, all the stress that's going on?
Yeah. So when you think about a leader, teams, they mirror often a leader's nervous system. So think of it, if the leader is constantly urgent, constantly reactive, or unavailable, the team can become anxious. They can be cautious, even burn out. And so often people stop taking healthy risks. Like it's important to take risks, but the healthy risks, people just step back. Communication gets tense. Culture becomes survival based
Mm,
versus growth based. So when you think about how to really retrain the nervous system, it really is not about having a big overhaul. In fact, that can send the brain and nervous system more into survival mode. That's actually what I found out for myself. I was trying to take these huge changes, big steps, and my brain was going, we're not doing this. And it was very frustrating because I had lots of tools. So it's really about tiny steps of stepping back, distracting yourself. And it's interesting because you may have heard of the circadian rhythm. Our
mm,
physical body follows this around the clock and it's tied to each organ. Our brain has something called the ultradian rhythm, and it runs at night, but also during the day. And so basically, every 90 minutes, your brain requires a break physically, completely. And that's why often we'll feel a slump in the mid morning. We'll feel an afternoon slump. And what we typically do is go for caffeine or we push harder so we can get all our work done. But if we can give ourselves, we have this built-in regroup system. If we can give ourselves 5 minutes or even 10 minutes every 90 minutes, a break, step outside or do some box breathing, completely distract yourself, and then come back more again, and you're feeling more refreshed. So it really is about looking at what's going to give you an energy boost. Like what's energetic for you may be different for me. An acronym or a reset that I really love is called HALT. So clinicians use it with clients. So basically it stands for hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. And the idea is when you're any of those four things, hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, stop what you're doing, take a breath, and ask yourself, what is it that you need in that moment? And
Yeah.
often it's a basic biological need. If you're angry, it could mean that you're hungry or hangry. Oh, and the first one, hungry, have a protein bar, have regular protein that energizes your thinking and decision part of your brain. And if you are angry, do what our grandmothers tell us to do, count to 10. There really is science to that, just taking a few breaths that boosts oxygen to your brain so you can think more clearly. If you're lonely, connect with someone. It could be reaching out to a friend you haven't heard from in a long time, or telling your spouse that you're thinking of them. We need that connection. And if you're tired, which you mentioned, sleep, going to bed 10 minutes early for a week, and then another 10 minutes in a couple of weeks. But the idea is you're really retraining your brain and nervous system gradually versus these huge steps. Otherwise, it becomes like a resolution. You know how people say, I'm going to do this, and then we get on track by third week of January? It's because we haven't built in a gradual shift and change that our nervous system is expecting.
Yeah, so good. You know what? Again, lead up listeners, Barb's giving us great information, but I want to make sure you heard what she said. Don't try to do too much too fast, right? Because we actually give our brain another shock, right? It's small incremental steps. That's why a lot of resolutions fail. Especially, I always use weight loss when I'm talking about this, right? I'm gonna do these 10 things so I can lose weight, and by the second week we've quit because it's just too overwhelming. I just challenge, like, start drinking water every day. Start drinking water every day, right? Or get up 5 minutes earlier every day. Put your gym clothes on. You don't have to go to the gym and work out. Just put your gym clothes on, right? And making those small steps. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was reaching for my glass of water. Yeah. So interesting thing, our brain is about 80% water, 20% fat. So it needs water to rinse, but also boost blood flow in the day. So if we're not doing that during the day, our brain is dehydrated. And we can't think clearly from a dried up brain. I know that sounds gross, but I have to almost trick my mind into really looking at the habit that I'm doing. And if I'm depleting water, I'm depleting myself of good thoughts and good judgment.
Yeah. Water for the body and especially the brain is like oil for a vehicle, right? And if an automobile doesn't have oil, it creates friction heat and then breaks down, which is what the brain does, right? It stops, those synapses stop firing as fast as they should. It slows down. You make bad decisions. And in healthcare leaders, that's critical. Healthcare is one of the number one killers in America, mistakes in healthcare, right? And so when our brain's not functioning properly, we make mistakes. And so that's why what Barb is teaching us here is so vitally important. Barb, we could probably spend the next hour talking about that particular topic, but let's move on because I want to give the listeners a little more about your book here. One phrase in your subtitle is enjoy productive peace. Tell us what productive peace is. What do you mean by that?
Yes, I intentionally did that because often busy people, including myself, to think about taking time off. It's like, I know I need it, but I need a reason for it. I like to know the why behind the why something is so important. And one thing we know about peace, it really gives us just that complete knowing that all is well. Like we want that peace. But peace and being mindful and just having that sense of calm, there's also a chaos, and that's in our productivity. It literally gives us energy. It creates the space so we can get clear. And I have found that I'm able to be more productive and problem solve when I'm at a state of peace and calm. So I put that intentionally just because when you think about peace, it makes room for clarity and it crowds out chaos. We're still always going to have stress and chaos in our lives, but it tends to start making this room that we didn't have before. So I see it as focused energy rather than us feeling frantic and trying to get to that place of peace. But neurologically, having a brain that is calm, it allows for us to have better judgment, more creativity, and even connection with our teams. And so when we look at pressure-driven productivity on the other side, that's short term. Yes, we can get things done, but it's short term. It can also wear us out and deplete us for other things that we want to do. And peace-driven productivity, that's more sustainable.
It's so good. So, Barb, there's lots of books, lots of talks about resilience and productivity and burnout. What makes this book, Regroup, different than those?
Yes, so much good information out there that I have benefited from, and I'm so grateful for those books, just because it really led me to where I am to now. So there's no shortage of good info on burnout, in other productivity books. So what we don't have is a lack of knowledge, but we do have a self-awareness problem. And this book I see as a bridge between what people already know about what's out there and what they're actually experiencing internally in this moment. So instead of giving more strategies to chase or product things to be more productive, my hope is that this book helps leaders really understand how the resilience is taking shape, how their brain is functioning, how they're managing their energy, and how they're feeling aligned, and how all of those are really interacting when they're a space of pressure. And so
Mm.
regroup, I've been told as reviews are coming in that it's not telling people how to work harder, but it gives them clarity to patterns that they're living that are either helping them already or harming them.
Yeah, to make real change, right? There has to be a pattern interrupt. Like you mentioned, the patterns they're living, and because 90+%, and Barb, you may know what the real studies are through your research, but there's a lot of studies that say 90+% of what we do is through subconscious habit, nature, right? And so many people are living patterns of behavior that they're not even aware of. And Barb, as she just described, this book, if you'll get it, you'll read it and take action on it, it'll give you that pattern interrupt to do something different, to act different, to behave different, and create a new rewire in your brain. Talk about that just for a minute, Barb, about rewiring the brain for resilience, rewiring the brain for peaceful productivity, those types of things.
Yeah. What they found in research and even research back in the 80s is our brain is not as static as they thought. Like they thought after a certain age, your brain couldn't change and good luck downhill from there. But what
Mm,
they found is your brain is constantly reshaping every single day. And it's reshaped by the foods that we give it. It's reshaped by the thoughts that we tell ourselves, also through our experiences in the past and also current experiences. And they talk about a phrase called neuroplasticity. And it's really your brain's ability to change, whether it's in a positive direction, it goes both ways in a positive direction and sometimes in a negative direction. The good news is we can be proactive and we can work with our brain and support the direction that we want it to change. So when I talk about rewiring, sometimes we think of wires and stuff, but it can be
mm,
simply questioning our thoughts and thinking, is that thought that I'm thinking that is harmful, is that thought true? isn't absolutely true all of the time, but just giving our brain a different gateway and a different alternative to thinking versus just this one way.
So good. Okay, let's land the plane here. What do you
Right.
want? Let's just you hear somebody talking about they're gossiping about Barb Gustafson or Reed Grove. What do you want to hear them say? What do you hope they say when they have read this book?
I hope I hear simple things, but important things like I feel like myself again, or I realize there's nothing innately wrong with me. I hope I fear Or I hope I hear that I stopped living in a constant state of urgency, or I'm leading better because I'm taking better care of myself. I really hope the bold things start to emerge and support people that are seemingly small, but create a big shift in their thinking and then end up translating in their outcomes.
Yeah, so good. So, Barb, one last question for you. Or a couple of questions, I guess. Where can people find the book? Where can they find you, connect with you if they want to learn more?
Yes, so they can find the book on Amazon. They can find it on Barnes& and Noble as well, and they can connect with me on my website, discovernextstep.com, or they can look me up in LinkedIn, and that's under Barbara Gustavson.
Yeah, we'll make sure we get those links in the show notes as well. Go out and get a copy of Barb's book, Regroup: How to Reset Your Mind to Unlock Hidden Energy, Enjoy Productive Peace, and Feel Like Yourself Again. Here's what I'll say about Barb. I've known Barb for, gosh, Barb, should we really tell everybody this? Over 10 years. I met
Yeah, it's
Barb.
over.
I met her husband, Paul. Paul and I are really close friends, do a lot together. I met Paul in 2011 and Barb shortly after that. It's been almost 15 years. I've watched Barb grow and become a product of what she's teaching us today. And she is someone to listen to. I'm very picky about who I listen to and who I take advice from. Go out and get a copy of this book, listen to it, because what I've watched Barb do is apply what she's teaching us, what she's given us in this gift of a book, in her own life to live out. So thank you for that, Barb. And the conversation just, it feels deeply important right now. I know where we're at. You talked about connecting. We live in the most connected society ever, but we're more disconnected than we've ever been. And it's just a deeply important conversation for us to have, because the truth is, in my work, leadership and working with organizations don't burn out, but people do. And when leaders burn out, cultures fracture, decision making suffers, families feel it, teams feel it, communities feel it. What I appreciate about your message today is that regrouping isn't weakness, it's wisdom, it's leadership maturity, it's neurological responsibility. And you reminded of that today in this conversation. Pause is not retreat. Restoration is not laziness. Alignment is not indulgence. These are all messages from Barb's book. It's how sustainable leadership is built. So to every leader listening today, if you've been showing up for everyone else, if you've been carrying that invisible load, if you've been operating on empty while pretending you're fine, the question Barbara leaves us with is simple. Who will take care of everything if you don't take care of yourself? Barb, thank you for your message. Thank you for your book. Thank you for the research. This is research based. It's not just Barb just didn't have an idea and write a book like I would do. She's put the work in and the research, and she's a product of that research as well. Thank you for reminding leaders that they're allowed to feel like themselves again as well. So go grab a copy of Regroup. Share this conversation with a leader who needs it. And remember, leadership isn't just about output, it's about alignment. This is the Lead Up Podcast. We'll see you on the next episode.